So again, welcome to the virtual open house for fine arts. Today is November 16th. The main two presenters are myself and Paul. I'm the Assistant Director of Grad Admissions. Paul, do you want to officially introduce and tell them your title?
Sure. So hi, everybody. I'm a professor here at Columbia. I've been here 12, 13 years. I've been teaching about 20, 25. I'm also the director of grad study for art and art history department. So the MFA in fine arts is something that I coordinate.
And I'll let Chelsea introduce herself at the end. But quickly to put in context about the school, I want to designate one slide that talks about Columbia as a whole. So Columbia College Chicago is an arts and media school located in Chicago. The mission is to educate students who will communicate creatively and shape the public's perceptions of issues and events, and who will alter the culture of their times. And I think that's really reflective in a lot of our curriculums and all of our programs. With nearly 50% of its student population identifying as a person of color, Columbia students really do reflect the economic, racial, cultural, and educational diversity of contemporary America. As I already mentioned, we're located in Chicago. We're actually located in the heart of Chicago's Cultural Mile in a neighborhood called the South Loop. I'll show that on the next slide. And there are roughly 7,000 undergraduate students at Columbia, or 7,000 students total, and the majority of which are undergraduate students. The School of Graduate Studies in particular has around 175 to 225 students in any given year. And our programs are designed for small cohort sizes, so students receive ample attention from our faculty. And then again, just to put in context where we're at in the city, this is a lovely photograph of Buckingham Fountain, our world famous Buckingham Fountain. There's the Willis Tower, formerly known as the Sears Tower. And this is a campus map. So right here is Lake Michigan. Here's Buckingham Fountain. And then this right here, this rectangle, this 2-block wide, maybe a mile long rectangle of the South Loop is where the majority of buildings are located on campus. And I'm gonna let Paul take the next couple of slides talking a little bit about the program.
Cool. Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, David. And of course, any of this stuff, I'm going to go quick with, there'll be time later. So it's MFA, it's a terminal degree, which, means that it would be recognized elsewhere as something to be able to teach on, to be able to get full-time teaching jobs, though that's not the only reason to get an MFA, which is part of how we've redesigned our focus. The department it's in is art and art history. The length of the program, it's been designed to be a 2-year program. So it's a 60 credit degree. And typically, like the main curriculum path is that you would take 15 credits per semester. However, it is possible, and you would want to designate this at the time of applying. It is possible to try and pursue on a 3-year or a 4-year path. If you're interested in that, that's something I think that we have to have a little bit more of a conversation about, because if it remains if it's a 3-year path, it can remain full-time, and there's certain financial implications. If it changes to part-time, there's different financial implications. So just anyway, but it's something to know, because I know some people want to take more time, but we've designed it so that people can do it in 2 years. I'm of two minds about which way is best. I think for certain people, honestly, 3 years can really, really be the right amount of time. And so, something to talk about. We only have fall starts for our cohorts. It's a cohort-driven model. So when we're looking at applications, we're thinking about a lot of things, including how will you work with the people that you're coming in with, because you're a network, both the networks, the professional networks that we introduce you to, as well as the networks you're creating by coming and being part of a cohort. And so in order to strengthen that, we do fall starts only so that we can really make sure that the cohorts build upon and with each other as a lifetime type of community. Our typical incoming class size is we're aiming for a target from 8 to 12 students. And that's actually about reflective. We had 7, you are applying, if you apply to the program, you'd be applying to the 3rd year of the program. Though I've been doing graduate programs here for many years. This program formed, and Chelsea actually and those in thesis are in the 1st cohort going through the program. And so we had 7 people in the 1st year come in. One of them is taking 3 years. We'll have 9 people graduating next year. And so, and so again, our target is 8 to 12 to come in. So you would be joining, there already would be about 8 or 9 people here in the program that you'd be joining. So just to give you a sense of scale and the intimacy of things. Oh, perfect, good timing. So then a few 40,000 foot view kind of thoughts about the highlights of the Fine Arts MFA that we built. First and foremost, this is a really innovative curriculum. I have looked, I really believe what we've built is kind of unique to the field. It combines interdisciplinary studio arts courses alongside business and entrepreneurship classes. And really, every time you hear me talking about it having a unique curriculum, it is that particular detail. I have looked long and hard. There really is no exact parallel in the field. And so that's something to think about. It's what we're proud of. It's also what we think makes sense for how we're trying to react to how students and the world that we're in now. MFAs emerged at a moment when teaching was one of the very big reasons. And of course, it remains one of the big reasons why people get MFA. But we're trying to also give you the skills to potentially be more of an entrepreneur and see your art practice as a business practice, which it is. Just, this is a way of admitting that that's a thing and then giving you the skills that you need rather than having you have to learn them, 3 years after graduate school, like most all of the faculty had to. With that in mind, our degree is rooted in mentoring and critique. Those of you that were, actually all of you I saw were at my class, you can see what I mean by mentor and critique. You got I can describe it, but you saw what we're talking about. It's about hands-on, individualized, the thesis students I meet with every week one-on-one. They're meeting with the other faculty one-on-one and in little groups. And of course, in terms of what materials, a lot of times when people go to grad school in the arts, they're like, I'm going to study painting, I'm going to study this, and that's fine. If that's you, keep in mind that we're very open-minded about what materials you use. For us, contemporary artists aren't defined by materials. If you believe they are, that's fine. But my experience has been one where it's idea first, material second. So as the ideas evolve, if you need to use painting, if you need to use sculpture, if you need to use performance, you will adapt and learn and collaborate and do all that you can to integrate those tools and techniques. Of course, I want you to be able to master tools and techniques, but that's not exactly the strength of what an MFA program, or certainly not the MFA program that we've designed is. The point here, the second bullet point that I want you to take away is, if you have a creative practice and you use some material, and let's say you use clay, or you use interactive media, or you use video, or you use drawing, and you're like, this is my thing, then tell us about it. But if you use 12 things, tell us about it. We're not requiring you to focus on any one mode, though we can talk a little bit more. There'll probably be questions about portfolio later. Third bullet point, super important. I said our curriculum's unique. 1/3 of our degree is professional practices. Compare this, and I really mean this. Compare this to what else you find in the field. Normally, you'll find most MFAs, which is fine, they'll have like one, if any, elective course on professional practices. And that's usually taught by an artist who teaches you how to write grant proposals and that sort of thing. We have that course, but we also partnered with the business department. So you take a course with a lawyer where you learn from a lawyer about copyright and contracts and legal issues. We also have educational pedagogy course, something I wish I had when I went to graduate school. We actually teach you about different pedagogical theories. We teach you about diversity in the context of building a curriculum and syllabi. And these are really super unique courses. There's also a course that you take with a professional project manager about what it means to work on really, really large projects and the strategic thinking that goes into scheduling time. Your faculty, they're accessible. You can see it. Again, people coming to my class today, they're guests. This is a day off for a lot of them, but we're here, we're always on. And we're practicing artists. You can see one of my many studios here where I now teach. With deep connection to Chicago, we're really, as well as beyond. A lot of us have worked, both around the world as well as locally and regionally. So we're here to try and connect you to those networks. It's a big part of who we are. And the last thing here before David takes me away and says, you took too much time, but Chicago is an affordable, socially aware, culturally engaged city. It is one of the best places I can think of to start your career in the arts. I mean, honestly, it's the third largest city in the US. It's a beautiful town. And the truth is that space is really affordable. When I compare it to other towns of similar scale, I mean, I've lived in New York, San Francisco, LA, and it's like other places are just, it's hard to get that much space for as much as you can get here. And as an artist, for me, that's been really useful. And I think for some of my colleagues, that's true too. So I think it's something to think about, especially being, again, the third largest city in the US. Anyway, I'm just talking too much. And
Well, speaking of spaces, I think the next couple slides are all about facilities. So I'll let you handle these.
oh, still me? Okay. So yes, facilities. Columbia's pretty great in terms of its facilities. That first bullet point, it's really hard to describe this, but there is a 15,000 square foot collaborative worker makerspace on the 10th floor of one of our buildings. It has giant windows across a whole wall that face out west and look at the Sears Tower. It's just beautiful place. It's a beautiful place to work, but also it's a place where you have woodworking, metalworking, light metals, 3D printing, laser cutting, all kinds of CNC robots for any kind of fabrication. I know that same building, 623 building, was the main building of our facilities. There's photo labs, installation labs. There's, it says 2 equipment cribs. Yeah, so there's many different photo, video equipment, lighting equipment, audio equipment, so media-based equipment, time-based equipment that you can check out. There's a whole digital print center that you can go to be able to get your work printed digitally on anything from paper to canvas to like different types of fabrics and whatnot that they can print onto. I think, is the next one a printmaking? I can't remember what the next slide is. Sorry.
The next one, yes.
Okay. We have tons and tons of printmaking facilities. There's actually in 2 different buildings we have printmaking facilities. There's both traditional print media, things like litho, intaglio, etching. We also have a risograph. So a lot of your traditional printmaking. We also have a whole bunch of extremely unique studios in the book arts. So letterpress, book binding, and even one of the largest paper making studios like at any college, which Mel Potter, who was on the who is a paper maker, who was on the call, was there. Really a lot. I mean, facilities I could just take up a lot of time, but these are some of the big strengths that we have in terms of our facilities. And also, is it one more facilities thing? I feel like
I think it's sticking with 1104. This is the next little slides are students in their studio space.
Right, and so then the other thing to keep in mind is that everybody gets a studio. And in the 1104 building, we have like a lower level where there's these kind of beautiful large rooms that are subdivided into smaller kind of studio kind of spaces. And we have some pictures. I think there's probably a few slides.
Yeah, I'll keep flicking back in between among all 3 of them, and you can stop me.
Yeah, and so like you can just see these are our students. We actually, the campus photography is pretty awesome. We have an open studio event, and so these photos are from those open studio events that we've been able to hold, where we've typically done portraits of students working in their studios with their materials. Some of these are alums from last year. Some of them are alums from 2 years ago. I mentioned that even though this fine arts program is in year 3, we've actually had graduate programs, and this is the reconfiguration that we've come up with after many years. It's a cool space down there, and some students will use it as a place to work, like to actually do the making of the artwork. Some people will treat it more like a gallery. Some people will treat it more like an office. Some people will treat it like, I mean, this is not so good, but some people will treat it like storage, which isn't like exactly what I'm looking for.
Storage is important though.
But it is important. And so the fact that there's a place to drop things, is a big deal. So every student, every graduate student gets a studio space to work in down there, in addition to access to all these other kind of spaces throughout.
I think, and I think the last one about space is the student center.
Oh yeah, this thing. So this, I was like, should we have a picture of the buildings? Like, yes. The student center, I mean, something to keep in mind is Columbia is big, meaning like 7,000 students studying art in all different forms, film, this, that, the other thing. So there's something like 20 buildings that are Columbia. But you, as a one of our students, there's really three buildings you'll use. There's the 623 building where the wood shop is. There's the 1004 building where your studios are and some of the other. And then there's this building in between the two. The student center is stunning. There's another maker space in there. There's a cafe.
Down here.
There's a workout center. There's a giant event space. There's some galleries. I have to tell you, sometimes I just go in there on my own just to like get a coffee and have student meeting, that kind of thing. It's a wonderful. I mean, it's beautiful, but it's also really kind of an interesting space now that we've had it. It's really truly in the center of campus geographically speaking, and it seems to have done what the designers and the architects of the thought about having one wanted, which is to say a place where people can really kind of congregate. Well, right now is a little complicated, but notwithstanding, it definitely plays this role of being sort of the center of campus. Anyway, I will zip my lip because I've always got a lot of stuff.
It's a really inspired space. All right, the next two slides are about the curriculum, which you've gone over some, so I'll let you sort of give some highlights again for the next two slides.
Some of the highlights here, and the pictures you're seeing, by the way, these are from thesis shows past, like the one where one of the students built a planetarium dome, or the one where the student had gotten she used AI to create a fashion line, which is a whole other story to get into.
Her work is also on the side of the whole PowerPoint too.
So every semester, the backbone of the program is mentoring and critique. So every single semester, you're enrolled in a course called Graduate Studio and Graduate Critique. Those are 3-credit courses. Graduate Studio is essentially its primary focus is working one-on-one with a mentor teaching the class, though there's also some group activities that are part of Graduate Studio as well. Graduate Critique, every single week, there's some critique experience, whether you're presenting your work and getting feedback on it, or one of your classmates is presenting. And what we do is we build out faculty panels that come in and rotate, so you have many different voices. And every time those classes that you're taking every semester get offered, we try and rotate who's teaching it so that you're getting a whole wide variety of feedback. You can see you taking some contemporary art history classes. Art practice now is a class you take twice at the beginning and end of your time. It's paired with our lecture series. So you end up going to lectures and then kind of analyzing them and writing response papers back to them and learning about how basically using the artist lecture series as a laboratory to really kind of plumb how are these professionals being professionals in this profession that you theoretically want to take part in. Teaching methods and pedagogies, that's a 3-credit course that you take on the art and, well, I'd say science, but on pedagogic and teaching methods, which also makes you eligible to apply for several instructor of records positions. And to unpack that, we hire some of our students to teach courses every semester. Successfully completing the teaching methods course allows you to apply and then become a teacher to undergraduates. So if you're here for 2 years, that means you have 3 opportunities to teach. Those are competitive, but when she talks, I know Chelsea's taught a bunch for us through the GSI program, and I'll let her expand on that. A little bit down in semester 2, a lot of it's similar and self-explanatory, but you do take that course called Professional Practices for Artists. Again, that's a course taught by a practicing artist about Things like, how do you approach a gallery? How do you write a CV? How do you apply for a grant? Even better, how do you find a grant? What does that even mean? And then the other course, Arts, Media, and the Law, that's actually in the business department. And that's taught by a lawyer who knows about copyright, intellectual property, these sorts of things. Semester 3, you can see that, again, you're still in studio and critique. You start taking the thesis class, which was the class that you just visited. You also take a project management class with a professional project manager, and I can unpack that a bit more if people want to know more. You also have the first of 2 electives, and I'll talk a little bit about that in a moment. And then you see that your last semester, again, critique and studio, thesis 2, which is, again, with me, it's that year-long experience where then the exhibition's happening. Art practice now is, again, the lecture course, and you have another elective. And so let me really just put the point in this. So our course, our program is highly structured. And that means that as opposed to maybe other approaches, we require everybody to have many of these same experiences. And then there's these 2 electives that people typically take from outside the department. There's always some stuff in the department to take, but we encourage people. Maybe it's a course in creative writing. We have actually so many people in the spring who are going to be taking a poetry writing workshop. We've had people take photo courses. We've had people take courses in sometimes in theater, sometimes independent studies, sometimes internships. There's a lot of ways that those electives can work out for people. And actually, some people even elect to take even more classes in the business and entrepreneurship department, because they have some courses in gallery management. They also have some courses in fundraising, which I've heard nothing but amazing things about. So those electives are the place where you could kind of further fine tune. Though again, it's worth knowing this is a highly structured degree. I just want people knowing that coming in. Faculty. There are many faculty. I can't stress this enough. Graduate school, you'll hear some version of this from me and others like me, meaning other program directors. The phrase is, graduate school is really different than undergraduate. But part of what I really want to say, what you do with that is, look up who the faculty are in the department. These are the people you're going to be working with. These are the people who, you're really building a lifelong networking relationship with. And so look at our work. I'm super proud of my colleagues, and I'm like so thrilled to be able to work with them. This is truly a handful of the art and art history faculty. And there's quite a few other folks out there who teach with us. But the point is that look at our work and get a sense of who we are, because I think that we are what we have to offer you, is the experience to learn about yourself through both the curriculum as well as these relationships as the lens for growth. That's really what we're about. And I'll be quicker than describing all of our work, because I think it's better for you. And I encourage you to do this with any graduate program. Make that one of the top things you do, is look at literally who you'll be studying with, because it gets overlooked. Sometimes you're like, oh, it's really, really specific to who the people are that you'd be studying with, is the experience you're going to have. And I've got other things to say too, but I'm trying to be good because I want to get to Q&A.
Good. I think that takes you to the end of your slide. I'm going to quickly go through a couple more slides before we let Chelsea take over. So quickly, I know we might have questions about funding, but the quick sort of main columns by which students typically have helped fund their education are scholarships, working both on and off campus, and then loans, obviously. So scholarships, by applying on or before the priority deadline, which in your case is January 15th, and I'll talk about that in a second, you're going to be automatically considered for any incoming student scholarships. Those could range anywhere from 25% of your tuition upwards of 75% of your tuition being covered. Those are merit-based scholarships that you don't need to do anything additional to be considered for, other than just applying to the program. Your application for admissions also serves as your application for scholarships if you apply on or before the priority deadline. There are continuing student scholarships, which you can look up and apply to later, potentially after your first semester. But the main incoming student scholarships are those graduate award scholarships that I mentioned. I won't go on too much about working on campus, but there are a variety of jobs on campus. Students who are either international or domestic can work up to a maximum of 20 hours a week. on campus. Domestic students can work off campus, international students cannot. And then you all know what loans are. I'm just going to say that you should be submitting your FAFSA if you think you might be taking, or at least you want to know what your loan eligibility is. The FAFSA process is a separate process than the admissions process, but you should be doing it along the same time. And we can talk more about this in during the Q&A. As far as application requirements go, that's a general list of everything that we require: an application fee, 2 letters of recommendations, a resume, transcripts from all universities that you've attended, an essay, and a portfolio. And I'm going to let Paul expand on those a little bit in a second if he'd like. And then international students potentially might have additional requirements such as proof of English proficiency or transcript evaluation. The full list of requirements can be found at that website, colum.edu/grad admissions. Paul, is there any quick takeaways you want applicants to consider when it comes to either their essay or their portfolio or any other portion?
Yes, and let me be somehow brief. The portfolio should be the work that you believe in the most. Really, the work that you feel is the most urgent, the work that you feel is, I don't know how else to say this, the best. Meaning
Sure.
the work that you tell yourself is the best, because
Right.
you're going to feel the most comfortable showing and sharing that work. Oftentimes, and for us, this is sometimes you will get portfolio advice that says, we want to see 20 of the same thing. Our faculty will understand if you show us 3 paintings and 5 sculptures and 3 of another thing. That won't harm you in this process. But you will then, there will be a pressure on you that's on everybody who's applying to really help us understand, how does this amalgam then, how is it you? How do your concepts, how does your work make sense, basically, in terms of conceptually, how does it link together? So people who are showing all one of the same material have a benefit, right? There's a certain convenience to saying, oh, look, these all kind of are materially the same. But we'll still be, as faculty, asking these questions of, okay, conceptually, what is this about? What are they trying to achieve? So my advice to you, other than in the portfolio, put the work you're the proudest of in it. In the essay, pay very close attention, please, to what we've asked for, which is for you to give us a sense of conceptually what this work is about and what you're driving at. There's a bit of an explanation on the graduate admissions site about this, but my summary of that is really the essay. I can't stress this enough. Our faculty, we read that essay. We're really trying to make sure, and oftentimes it's how do I really put this? Oftentimes it's part of what we're looking at if we're not certain what the work is doing. And sometimes we're looking at it because when we're doing scholarships, to be frank.
Mhm.
So a piece of work where we understand both the work and the concept behind it really clearly can really make a giant difference. It's like, I don't want to be awful. Obviously in the essay, we want to understand what your goals are. So you should be clear in your goals. But sometimes I think people look at the essay as a place of giving us some kind of poetry and telling us about their feelings, which is great. But really, the sharper you can be in that essay about defining what you see your goals are right now and how you see this specific program helping you reach those goals, and then making some ties to, hey, and did you notice in more portfolio these pieces and these concepts that are linked to the goals that I'm talking about? Try and really see these as interlinked package to teach the faculty about how we can be the best place to help you.
And then lastly, just a quick couple, you can begin or continue your application by going to apply.colum.edu/apply. Again, as I mentioned, the priority deadline is January 15th. We technically accept applications or review applications on a rolling basis after the priority deadline. But as I mentioned, you will not be considered for incoming student scholarships with it anywhere near the way that you would be if you apply on or before January 15th. So at this early stage in the game, you should all be using January 15th as your deadline. And then decisions are typically reached 6 to 8 weeks after the priority deadline. So you're looking at beginning of March through the middle of March, typically, before you get a decision back. And that's it. I'm just going to quickly put up mine and Paul's email address. And then I'm going to hit stop on the recording, and I'm going to let Chelsea take over from here. Stop recording.